Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello. Have you ever wondered whether the person you present to the world is truly who you are or who you've learned to become? Welcome to Iconic Women. I'm your host, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Each episode, we introduce you to remarkable women whose courage, resilience, and purpose are making a positive impact in the world. Today, I am very excited and delighted to welcome Birgitta Visser, a soul empowerment coach, author, modern day mystic, and transformational guide to our program. She's joining us from Spain. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Jacalyn. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. We were just chatting backstage, and people around the world can relate to this. It is hot. It is blazing hot. And we are doing our best under the lights to stay calm, cool, and collected. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. As I said to you, it's like nearly 90 degrees in my house. So I'd rather be running around naked, but I can't.
We'd have to accept that as an X-rated program then. But Brigetta, when people meet you today, they see someone who speaks about healing, empowerment, and authenticity. But every transformation started someplace, right? There was a beginning. So what happened in your own life that set you really on this extraordinary journey?
Well, you know, prior to us being born, we ask for these experiences, right? We may not remember. And we're like, yeah, but I didn't ask for this. You know, why is this happening to me? No, it's not happening to you. It's actually happening for you. But sure, I mean, you know, my childhood started off really, really good, to be honest. And then when I was about 10 or 11, I was molested by a friend of the family. Well, it was really a business partner for my dad in Kuala Lumpur. And the 1980s, I always say, was a very different era to the world we live in now. So I didn't understand it, and I just kept it bottled inside. And then I lost my dad when I was 14. We just returned to Holland, and he had coronary heart disease. And so that was really tough. First time that I ever had a headache, and I couldn't understand that he was just boom, he was just gone. And then I had the bullying in high school because I was really skinny, and you know, 5'11", so one of the tallest kids in my class. And again, you know, from that point on, I already started like chucking away my lunch, and it's really weird, right? We are so conditioned to live a certain way, to act a certain way, and be a certain way. And I just, again, I kept everything bottled up inside. And, you know, fast forward, my mother put me on a modeling course just to crank up my confidence, because I was really walking around like the Hunchback of Notre Dame because I just didn't want to be seen. You know, getting to the classroom and there was a guy or a boy in the corridors, I would just take a different route. That was me. I had such a fear ingrained within me as a kid. And I carried that with me for a long time. But when I did the modeling course, there was a hairdresser there, and he said, "Oh, do you want to do a hair show?" I thought, yeah, why not? You know, these days they'll use wigs, right? But I mean, I had hair to my shoulder nearly, and I got it into a pixie cut. And I felt horrible. I hated myself. I mean, I hated myself from, from when I was a teenager, gawky teenager with what I call I had gangly legs like a giraffe. And all I really wanted to do was disappear. And so after high school, I mean, I did travel. I did some modeling, but it's not all that's cracked up to be. I mean, I was assaulted in the modeling industry as well, and that I carried that with me. Again, I carried that with me. I couldn't. I was living in New York at the time, and who was I going to tell? Nobody. It would be his word against my word. And I lost my stepdad when I was nearly 25. He had cancer, throat cancer. And my mom was leaning on me emotionally. And I had these friends, and I take total responsibility. But they got me into kind of like drugs for like 3 months. Yeah, and I blacked out as well. And it was one of these things where people just wanted to see me happy. If I talked about my stepdad, it was like I could talk about it for 2 minutes, and then it was like, okay, we don't want to hear it anymore. So yeah, 3 months, and like I said, I blacked out. I was still going to work, but it continued on. So everything just kept building up, and and even the relationships I was in were very, very dysfunctional. And then Jacalyn, we often wonder, why are they so dysfunctional? It's because we haven't poured that love into ourselves, right? We haven't accepted ourselves as we are. We haven't healed. And that was my problem. And I didn't understand that until many years later. I really had to hit rock bottom several times. And it's never nice to hit rock bottom. It really isn't, but sometimes it's really necessary so that you get that wake up call, like, hey, you know what? I'm worthy. Yeah, I'm worthy of living a better life. I'm worthy of that self-love. I carry value.
Thank you so much for your transparency and for being brave, because I know every time we share our story, little of the past comes back up and we have to deal with it again. My question for you about what you shared, and for people who are maybe going through something similar, also a lot of trauma, how do we know when we have dealt with it? Whether we're sharing with other people or we're dealing with ourselves, how do we know when we are healthy, so to speak, when it comes to dealing with an issue like that?
You mean once you've overcome it?
Yeah, how do you know you've actually overcome it? Because sometimes it comes back to haunt us, right? Oh, I thought I dealt with that, but
absolutely. That's why it's experiences go round and go in a spiral. So it does keep coming back because you have to heal on a deeper level. But the beauty about it is once you overcome something, you carry no more bitterness towards that experience. You don't have that anger, that frustration. You can talk about it without getting, so to speak, emotionally attached. When we talk about the emotional freedom technique, for instance, right? There's a modality I also studied, is where we tap the emotions out of the experience. And it's a very powerful tool. It's worked for me in the past. But when we overcome our trauma, we can talk about it without getting upset, and we understand the experience. That's why I said things do not happen to us. Yeah, because that's that victim mode. They happen for us. And when you realize that things happen for us, you start to analyze and you start to ask yourself, hey, what can I do to create a better life? Why was this person in my life? Why did this person trigger me? And when you get past that, and it doesn't matter whether you go for counseling or you need help getting past the experience. There's absolutely no shame in that. I applaud that. But once you get past that, you're able to breathe and you can let go, and your life, because we are all energy, and your life will start to unfold differently.
That is very powerful. And I think that really resonates with me, because I think to some things that happen to me and I'm able to talk about it and I don't get pulled back in.
Yeah.
And when you look at the woman you were back then, you're a beautiful woman, you're very successful, very accomplished, very well spoken. When you look back to that woman, what would you tell her now based on the journey that you've been on and that you are on?
That's a really good question. But back then I was a completely different person, of course, and I was very, very stubborn. I mean, I'm still stubborn, but in a different way. And I would really just sit down with her and ask her why. And I think many women can relate to this. When we get into these abusive relationships or we start repeating the same patterns, it's like, I would say to her, why are you doing this to yourself? Love yourself a little bit more, embrace that inner child, that wounded inner child, and know that you are worthy of more. Would I have understood back then? I would have given her a big hug, right? I would have given myself a big hug. Would I have understood it then? I don't know, Jacalyn. I might have, but I just didn't have anybody to speak to all these years ago, because life was very different to what it is now. People are far more open today.
Absolutely. And I think something that really pops into my head based on what you shared is that there are times when we do share things with other people and they make a judgment about it.
They do.
And they make a judgment about us. And now we're carrying that baggage plus this baggage. It's kind of like, you mentioned you can't even stand up straight anymore.
Exactly.
So, one of the things that I've learned in my own experience is that I try to process things myself instead of looking for that external validation, because you're not going to get it. It's like 50-50, right?
Absolutely. There's an important point you just stated. Validation. We seek so much validation from outside. Yeah. And we need to seek it from ourselves. We need to sit with ourselves and just be. And again, pour that love back into our own hearts first and foremost. And we think, when we talk about external validation, I think it comes from a lot of it comes from social media, TV, you name it. Again, because we've been told to live a certain way and be a certain way and act a certain way, as I said earlier. And we follow the fad, we follow the trend, but actually, we should be true to ourselves. And when people say, hey, you know what? Just be your own authentic selves. And they're like, yeah, but what does that even mean? It means that you live with integrity and that you're honest with yourself, that you accept yourself the way you are, and that you can look in the mirror and tell yourself, my dad used to always say this when we were kids, look in the mirror and tell yourself that you love yourself. Ha ha ha. We were laughing. My sister and I were laughing. But it is very true now. I look back at it and it's really so important to love yourself, because I didn't love myself. Oh my God. I was a pro at starving myself. Yeah, that's what I could control. I was a pro at working my socks off 7 days a week, no matter where I planted my feet in the world. I was this little chameleon. I would just blend in. And that's what kept my demons at bay at the time. I was really like a Houdini. Until I learned many, many years later that I really just had to sit down with myself and, speak to the demons that were stuck in my head. Because that's the thing, right? It doesn't matter what we go through. It's our trauma that's trying, I call them the demons in our head, but it's the trauma that's trying to say, hey, listen, we want to be healed. Can you just sit down for a moment? And, can we get you back in balance? So that your soul is aligned back into your body. And that's the thing. When we're not aligned, we suffer from dis-ease. I call it dis-ease because it comes out in some way, form, shape, or another, and we get ill. And ill is an acronym. It means we become imbalanced of love and light. Yeah, because we're not giving that to ourselves.
Absolutely. And one of the statements that I've heard people make over time, I don't know if I made it myself decades ago, but it was, I'm looking for my better half. And we're looking for like half of a person many times because we're not a whole person.
Correct.
So you mentioned about loving yourself. We have to love ourselves first, meaning we have to accept ourselves for who we are. But when you ask people to actually do that work and look in the mirror, sometimes it's hard to even look in the mirror and see what's staring back. So what are some of the steps that you would recommend people take first to get to know themselves and to be able to just sit with themselves?
Isn't that the saying, what, to know thyself is to love thyself? Right?
Yes.
Exactly that. Well, everyone is different. No two people are the same. And I say that in my healing practice as well. You have to do what feels right for you, what aligns with your spirit. So for me, as an example, the steps that I took, I was so far down the chute, right? You could probably call me depressed. As my psyche was I've been living the same patterns repeatedly year after year after year. And even though I peeled back the layers I started, I think, in 2009 or 2010. And I'd gone through a really, really bad breakup because my ex was in bed with the Crips in Holland, and I had my life threatened. And I helped the police save my ex's life because he was a part-time crack addict. And so when my mom got me out of Holland. This is an example. My mom got me out of Holland in the space of several days back to the UK, where I'd rented an apartment. And I downed a whole box of ibuprofens because I was just like, what the heck, man, I don't really care. All that did for me, Jacalyn, was it gave me like 12 hours sleep. And I did get up the next day and I was like, yeah, you know what? I can't go on like this anymore. So I knew I had to put on my big girl pants and say, you know what, I'm going to take responsibility for my life because I want a better life. I cannot live like this anymore. And so I went to see a counselor. That was my first step. I went to see a counselor. The counselor didn't work for me because all she said was, hey, Brigitta, you're going to be fine. You're strong enough. So I had to do the research, and I rolled into Reiki. And I studied under this woman, but it was really that was my saving grace for that experience. And again, you have to do what aligns with you. This is something that worked for me. Now I'm at a point where when I go through experiences, because when we dive into 2026, it's a very transformational year for many, many people, for many women, not just women, but also men, but mostly women. And you just have to sit back and just be and really say, hey, you know what? I do deserve a better life. So what can I do to make these changes? Yeah, and just listen, just sit with yourself and just listen. And my mom, she always asks the universe for help, right? I do too, but she's always like, hey, you know what? Please help me with this and this. And it's really, I do that too, but it's really about waiting for the signs. And it can come in the form of anything. Sometimes it's like, what works for me and what happens to me is like, I'll find a penny, which I used to do in the UK, or I find a cent or 5 cents here in Spain. And it's like, catch your thoughts. What are you thinking? So whatever you're going through, it works differently for everyone. But honestly, just sit with yourself and ask yourself, am I not deserving of a better life? If the answer is no, that's okay, then you're not ready to heal yet. If the answer is yes, then ask yourself, okay, what can I do to improve my life? What can I do to overcome my experiences? What steps should I be taking?
Thank you for sharing that. we have a number of people who are watching on the live who are posting comments. I normally don't do this, but there's a common theme with all of them, and it's
Okay.
about religion. It's
Yes.
about Jesus Christ is the only one who can save you. So what are your thoughts about that? Where does religion come into play or not come into play with what we're talking about today?
So everybody's on their own journey, right, Jacalyn? We're all on our own journey. If religion works for you and you believe that Jesus is your savior, Jesus stood for love, unconditional love. Yeah, that's what he practiced. That's what he preached. And the thing is, our divine essence is love. That is our main ingredient. That's how we're born, right? We just forget because we get so conditioned by society and the way that we are raised. I'm no exception to the rule. But Jesus is all about, it's about Christ consciousness. And Christ consciousness merely means that return to a love for ourselves and each other. But if you are judgmental and you do not have that love for yourself, then how can you ever love another? Yeah, Jesus said, love thy neighbor. And yeah, he was right, because when we are free of judgment, when we love ourselves and we love other people, regardless of the experiences that they throw at us or the triggers, we can just say, hey, thank you. There's one thing, with Saint Germain, because I do channel him, and he always says, you know what, whatever you're going through, just take a deep bow in gratitude and just say, I love you, but I love me more, and walk away from the experience. But remember, life is merely a return to love, nothing more, nothing less. So if you can learn to love yourself and love others, oh boy, how different the world would be.
I agree with you. I'm a peace ambassador myself. And I do believe, many times people post things and they are filled with judgment themselves, just
Okay.
the comments, that the only way is the way that you're posting. So people who are posting, think about what it is that's the underlying foundation of you posting what it is you're posting. I would like to talk a little bit about the work that you do. You are a soul empowerment coach. That's one of the things that you do. What does this mean for people who are not aware of this?
It's in the wording. It's actually, I always say it's in the wording because it's empowering our soul. It's really about empowering our soul and taking back our I am power, standing in our power, and again, understanding that we are worthy of living a better life. And that's really what it's about, because I'm sorry, we give we give our power away like sweets in a candy jar. That's what we do. And then we sit there and we're just riddled with anxiety, or we're riddled with insecurities. And we're like, yeah, but people say, well, you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do that. Well, I'm here to tell you that, hey, take back your power and live your life in integrity and your truth. That is what is important. Because otherwise, hey, we'll just keep wearing the masks, right? Because a lot of people wear masks and they cannot be themselves. And they have this negative committee in their head telling them how they should be behaving and how they should be living their lives. And it's like, you need to learn to shut that negative committee up in your head, because it's affecting everything in your life. Because I always say this, we are sacred geometrical beings consisting of energy, which creates frequency. Yeah. So what we vibe out, we reel back in. Yeah. That's the cause of law and effect. We are not just this organic blob, this body, this physical evidence. No, we're the light. We've got a soul that's in this temporary body. I call that a meat suit. Our soul is zipped up in here, and we are here to experience life.
Very well said. Thank you. One of the things that I love about social media is, for example, you and I are connecting now, right? You're in one country, I'm in another. And so we have access to meet people we might never meet otherwise. But in so many ways, it's a negative because there's so much hatred and judgment. And instead of people taking the time to actually research something, for example, what we're talking about now might not resonate with anyone. Well, do some research. It's okay. Do your research before you just start labeling and become judgmental. Because to me, someone else said this, that's called ignorance, is before you actually do any research, making judgment. So I just want to applaud you for the work that you're doing. I really support what you're doing. I want to talk a little bit about the fact that you're also a channel and light language healer. What does this mean?
Well, a channel, it's like, I started doing that. I mean, I attuned people for Reiki back in 2016 already, 2015, 16. And I went to a workshop because I did some Akashic record healing. And Akashic record healing, for those of you who do not understand what that is, it's going through your past lives, because it's not just when we, okay, let me take a back step before I dive into what a channel is. When we go through traumatic experiences or pain, it can also stem from our ancestral lineage. And you're like, well, how can that be? Of course, because when we grow in the womb, we carry the DNA from our lineage. And, and we carry that within our DNA, within our cells. And so we often get stuck in a repetitive pattern. That's one thing. But anyhow, yes, so I started channeling in about 2017, only because I kept having the same type of relationships, right? It was every time when I met someone new, it was just packed in a different package, so to speak. And my guys are like, oh, let's see what Brigitta's going to do now. And what did I do, right? I was really enabling the guys in my life. I would do everything for them. And we can't do that. We have to allow for people to grow. And I was trying to mold them and change them to my liking. We can't do that. We have to accept them as they are. We can learn a lot from one another. But that's something that I had to learn. So when I went, I went to this workshop because Alania Starhawk, she's in Florida, she helped me with overcoming, very traumatic relationship. And the beauty about that was walking through the Akashic records, the energy changed because that was healed. And all of a sudden he left me alone and I could breathe. I could really breathe. And so she had a workshop and there was a meditation and she counted to 3. I don't know where I went, Jacalyn. And probably 15 minutes later, she counted back from 3, 2, 1, and I was back in the room. And there's one exercise that she gave because I was really upset. I was really upset during that workshop because everyone, they saw colors, they had messages, and I got nothing. But there's one beautiful exercise that she had, and that's how I got into channeling. And she said, when you're ready, just sit down with a paper and pen and just say to the universe, I'm open and ready to receive. Now, my mind was already shot to hell. So, I went home and I did precisely that exercise and it just started to flow for me. And it was really, when I look back and I still have it, it was in Old English prose. And then I started to ask questions and I was just sitting there, and I was just writing and I got the responses. Then I started using my cards, like the angel cards or the Ascended Master cards. And I just asked, is there anything that you can tell me? Or would you like to convey a message? Or can you tell me about a past life when you were on Earth? And that's how I got into channeling. And it became like second nature to me. It's like when you go to the gym, right? You can't just go for one session. Yeah. Yeah, you have to stick to it. You just have to stick to it. So that's how I started, and it was powerful healing for me too, because every healing modality I studied, yeah, it was also about healing myself.
Absolutely. And what stands out for me from what you just mentioned is that curiosity and that openness to learning something new. And I think for all of us, we go through the journey of life and we are in pain at some point, whether it's emotional, spiritual, physical, and whatever that method is that we heal ourselves, if it's in a positive way. You mentioned drug addiction, right? That is something that people turn to. I know people have done that and ultimately have passed away. So we want to find healthy ways to help us address whatever it is we're going through in life. So how do you actually work with people? We have your website and we've got all of your links, but for people who are out there watching now or later, they might think, you know what, this is really interesting to me. I've got some healing to do. How can I work with you?
Yeah. So I'm truthfully, you're going to laugh at this, I'm often people's last resort, because they're like, what the heck, man, what is light language? What does that do? And it's the cosmic frequency of love, and I thank you for that. And yeah, I mean, honestly, they come to me when they're tired, when their back's against the wall, and they're like, I've tried everything. Can you help me? I said, listen, and I'm very honest about that. I'm just a conduit. I'm just a tool in the toolbox. You are your own greatest healer. And for me, it's just unlocking that potential and, unlocking the pain that they've had tucked away. And so it's beautiful to see how they come out of it. Some people, they get rid of their fears. There are others that have had physical ailments and they've vastly improved. Now, I will say this, never, if you have Western medication, so to speak, right? Never discard that, because holistic and Western do go hand in hand. So yeah, it's and when they hear the language, I've had people cry as well. It's just really an emotional release for them. So I'm always very blessed, and I'm just very humbled to be able to do that work.
One of the things that you just mentioned that I'm smiling about when I was backstage is you said people come to you when it's potentially the last option, right? They've tried everything and it hasn't worked. And if they came to you when it was the first option, I wonder how much time they could have saved. But again, we're all on a journey. I know just last night, I was in the urgent care. I am completely covered with hives. I went to get a massage, which is a good thing. I've been going every week and my entire body is covered in hives. And they came out with at the urgent care, all these medications and do this and do that. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to see what I can do myself, right? I'll take the medications, but let me work on healing it myself. But I know that most people don't do that. They're like, give me the drugs, whatever the drugs are, let me have them now. And the truth is, until we find out what's at the root cause, and for example, what caused the hives to come out during the massage, it doesn't matter because it's going to come out some other way in the future, right?
It will, absolutely. Louise Hay, the late Louise Hay?
Yes.
She has this book on you can find it online now, and it talks about, if you suffer from a bad back or like hives or anything else, any pain in your body, she stipulates exactly why you're suffering from this pain. It was very much, I had her book, and when I had really, really bad stomach issues, I couldn't hold anything down. And I was stuck in a really toxic relationship, and that was exactly why it happened to me. I couldn't hold any food down. I couldn't even hold tea down. I was a walking skeleton, but I was still working. Yeah, I went to the office and I worked. I wasn't going to sit at home, but it took everything out of me. And what I needed to do was let go of that toxic relationship, but it took me several years to do that. And that's okay. We're all on our own journeys here.
Yes, we are all on our own journeys. And again, I think it is being open and accepting the fact that there are lessons to be learned. And
Yes.
so instead of going to that immediate judgment or the blame, it's your fault that this happened. It's what can we learn from it? Let us do some exploration. On the screen right now, we have your website under the tab books. What will people find here?
So they will find my collaboration book, Child of the Sun. It was a bestseller earlier this year. There is another one that's coming out, Evolving on Purpose, in September, where I lightly touch on the year 2026. And because it's such a year of change and so much is happening, not just in the world, but also within us. And I call that within us because a lot of people are going through life-changing events. Even my whole life is falling apart right now. And I'm like, okay, yeah, fine. It's fine. Because I also know I'm going through a transition period, which is good because sometimes we just need to let go and shed our skin like a snake does and just rise from the ashes like a phoenix reborn. Yeah, there's so much beauty and transformation. So whatever, and so it's not on here yet that this book that's coming out in 2026, September 2026, the 26th of September. But yeah, so whatever you're going through, just embrace it, accept it, and ask yourself, you know what, no matter what is going on around me, let me sort out my own life. And that's the one thing, we always look at the world around us, but it's like we need to look at our inner world and see how we can make the changes. Yeah, because when you make the necessary changes, you inspire other people to do the same. So that's that book. Becoming Authentically Me was my first book, but I'm rewriting that currently because it was way too long. It was like when you write your first book, you try and cram everything into it, and it's way too much information.
I know, yes, for sure.
So, but it was so healing. Every time I write, it's very, very healing. I mean, where I live in Spain, and I moved from one place in Spain to 2.5 hours south, and now I'm back up in the Costa Blanca area because I went through my ex from the US who had this drug problem in Holland. He came to Spain 2 years ago, and it was such a heightened experience. He was working in my house remotely, and oh my goodness, he was I don't like the labels, but it's easier for people to understand. He was a narcissist. He had like 10 distinct different voices telling him how to live his life. And some of them told him to commit suicide. He took over my whole home. It was in such disarray. I was walking around and, on eggshells. I was living and breathing and working in my study. He took, steroid injections. He converted GBH or GBL to GBH. It was like, mental health is no joke. Okay, it isn't a joke, and I was walking around with this fear, but I needed to get over that because this was my home and it was my life, and I had done so much healing in the meantime, and he had done nothing of the sorts. He gaslit me as well, and I'm glad I went through it. It wasn't fun at the time, but I had to kick him out of my house, and I did, and he procrastinated, and he smashed his laptop, a computer screen onto the porch, and he left with a volley of, he called me every name under the sun. And I had to cleanse my house, so I did that. I threw everything out that he had touched, and yeah, it's one of these things where I needed to put on my big girl pants, and I went on a healing journey of ayahuasca and plant medicine. And that was really powerful for me as well. I mean, I needed to get the police involved because he came back, and I'm so glad it happened to me, because I could shut the door. I could, after 20 years, Jacalyn, I could finally shut the door on him for good. And when we talk about that experience, right, when you say everything goes in spirals, and so he did contact me several weeks ago, but I have no more attachment to him. I mean, I responded, and he just said, "Oh yeah, I treated you wrong." Okay, that was an apology. I said, "Listen, I appreciate you telling me this." And I said, I'm glad that you're doing okay. And then I got a really long email back, and I didn't respond because I have no more attachment to him. And I know I deviated away from my question, but this is also in my books where I talk about it. So we can overcome because we are worthy of more. And it took me a long time to pour that love back into myself and to just detach, knowing that I do carry value. And it's also about having that self-respect.
Absolutely. And that is really a full circle.
Yes.
And I think stories are so important, because to what we started out with earlier today on this broadcast is that sometimes we have all these stories and we just keep them locked away. And we don't even have to share them with anyone else. We can write them down. We can say it out loud, but we have to process it. So I really admire you for sharing your journey with us. And I know your journey is literally just beginning. So I do want to highlight one comment that we have from somebody in the audience, David Thompson 3415. Our problems provide us with the opportunity to do amazing things.
Yes, I love that.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for the comments. So to me, it's all about gratitude and appreciation and leaving judgment at the door. So we have all of your links for people to reach out to you. Who would you like to contact you, and what's the best way for someone to do that?
So if they want to contact me, the best way to do that is through my website. There's a contact form for that. Yeah.
All right. And we have the link there in the show notes. So thank you very much. What would you like to close out the show with today, as we're talking about from trauma to spiritual awakening, for anybody out there in the audience who needs to hear this message?
I think it's really important, you just touched on it, is to have gratitude for everything that you go through and not have that bitterness. I mean, I do not carry any bitterness to any of the characters in my life. It took me a long time to get there, but everything that we go through is just an experience. Yeah. The characters in our life are not here to taunt us. They may trigger us, but it's only because something needs to be healed and something needs to be released so that you can live a more enlightened life, so to speak, right? Because every time we shed that layer, so just live your life in gratitude for everything that you're going through, and make sure to pour that love back into your own hearts. I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you very much. What a beautiful way to end our program today. And I really appreciate the opportunity to get to know you today and to just find out what it is you're doing. And I honor you.
Thank you so much for having me, Jacalyn.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for watching this episode of Iconic Women. What I'd like to share is I really believe the important things in life are finding peace. And if you can find peace within yourself, if you can have that happiness, instead of how much money is in your bank account, how many of this do you own, how much of that did you do, if you were to rank your happiness on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you be? And so to me, happiness, gratitude, appreciation, and being at peace are the most important things in life. So if this resonated with you, please do consider subscribing to our YouTube channels. We have two of them, USA Global TV and Radio, where we've earned the YouTube Silver Creator Award for over 100,000 subscribers. Thank you very much. And my personal channel, which we started a couple years ago, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Thank you again. Before we sign off for today, I just want to ask any of you who are going through something where you or family member have dementia. It's a very tough road. My mother had dementia. She died in 2023. I was her primary caregiver, and it is a very difficult thing. There is help. There are resources. And one of our own team members here, Tracy Cram-Perkins, she's written a book called Dementia Home Care Before, During, and After. And she actually has a TV show here with the same name. It'll be on tomorrow. Take a look at this about her book. I highly recommend it. USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram-Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care, How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram-Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
How much of your value have you been giving away? Saying yes when the answer should have been no? Lowering your price to secure the opportunity? Giving more while receiving less? Over time, it adds up. Until one moment brings clarity, you've been giving away your value. This is not about working harder. This is not about doing more. It's about boundaries. It's about pricing. It's about respect. From Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck comes a direct and necessary message. Stop over-delivering. Stop underpricing your expertise. Stop negotiating against yourself. Because when you recognize your value, everything changes. Stop giving away your value. Boundaries, pricing, and the business of respect. Available now wherever fine books are sold and on Amazon. A film by USA Global TV and Radio. Executive producer Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Videographer and cinematic production Paul Garcia. Voiceover by Ed Vargas. Stop giving it away. Start owning it.
Every great story begins with a vision. At USA Global TV and Radio for years, we've been providing world-class education, entertainment, inspiration, imagination, connections, and hope. Most people don't stay to watch the outro or the credits, but it's the people behind every success, behind every breakthrough, and behind every unforgettable story who matter. The TV show hosts, our guests, our sponsors, our publicists, our production team, our distribution team, our search engine optimization team, and so many more. You're the ones who make the difference. Every great story belongs to the people who bring it to life. Our future looks bright at USA Global TV and Radio, and that's because of you, our loyal fan base all around the world in more than 60 countries. Together, we're making a difference because you matter. USA Global TV and Radio, live streaming to over 60 countries. voiceover, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, video production and direction, Paul Garcia. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV and Radio on YouTube.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA-Global-TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.